If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I hate to say it, but this nugget of truth holds true, especially when running a campaign. You see, you can have the world building, the settings, the characters, the tensions, but without a plan or structure to pull everything together, you end up with a heap of really great ideas pushed together to form the gelatinous cube equivalent of a campaign. I know this because that's exactly how I felt when I started running my own campaigns. I burnt hours trying to figure out how to make all of these pieces fit together, only to spend hours more making adjustments after every session because the players are going to do something that completely throws everything off track. Worse off, it wasn't clear to me what exactly I needed to do to get my players from where they are all the way to that satisfying conclusion I kept imagining in my head. And that's why, after much testing and trial and error and trying to figure out what is the best thing to help solve this problem, I'm excited to share with you my method that will help you map out the key situations that should happen in your campaign and when they should happen. And this method is called Emergence. Emergence is adapted from the hero's journey, the quintessential archetype for heroic adventures. And it's also patterned after the classic 3-act structure, which a lot of blockbuster movies have used as a pattern to create their stories. And most of all, it is simplified for the busiest of GMs. And yes, it is an acronym. I never run a campaign without creating an emergence outline first, as I find myself constantly referring back to it as my campaign progresses. Now, this guide assumes that the world building, the big bad evil guy, the plot, the settings, the adventure, the premise, all those things have more or less been figured out. For now, my goal here is that by the end of this video, you will have an idea of how you can take your epic adventure all the way to a satisfying conclusion. So here's how it works. Like a Hollywood blockbuster, your campaign needs 3 major acts. Act 1 is all about the setup, setting the world, setting the adventures, setting the problems that the players are inevitably going to solve. Act 2 is all about the rising action. It's how the players go from getting introduced to the world all the way up to the climactic finish, which happens in Act 3. And Act 3 is all about the grand finale, the climax, the big showdown, and the resolution when all the dust settles. So let's break it down a little further. Act 1 is where you will establish your campaign setting, where the players are introduced to the world. Then, motivate your players with a compelling reason to go on the adventure. Then, your players will embark into the unknown, taking their first steps to achieve the quest, willingly or not, which leads them into Act 2, where they will encounter the road of trials, which are the allies, enemies, or tests that they will need to face on their way to the Guardian, the pivotal obstacle that stands in their way from their goal. Overcoming the Guardian will earn the players the right to seize the sword or claim the elixir. That is, until Act 3, where their nemesis will enact a plan that will cause the heroes a great setback and even the loss of something significant, which leads them to the climax, where they will come head-to-head against the big bad and bring the campaign to an end, the hard-earned conclusion to your grand adventure. The first thing that you need to understand is what we're outlining are the milestones of your campaign. A milestone does not necessarily represent a session, but rather the major objective that the players need to accomplish in order to move forward in the story. So for example, when I ran my own campaign, it took my players about 3 sessions before they got from the first milestone to the second one. And that is totally expected, because there is no telling what your players are going to do. But because you as a GM know exactly what the next milestone is, it's going to help you guide your players on your campaign. Without that, they're going to meander around and you're not going to know how to bring them back towards the main storyline. The major problem that every brand new adventure faces is not the world building, it's not the scope of the campaign, it's not the setting or even the plot. It's addressing this existential question: why should the players care? Because the fact of the matter is, they don't. No matter how rich or original or interconnected your campaign is, there is only one thing that players care about: their characters. You see, while you're laboring away at your own mini Cosmere, they're also meticulously crafting their own version of a Kaladin Stormblessed. Every adventure needs a problem that the players will solve, and a good reason for why they want to solve it. Jason and the Argonauts set forth to recover the Golden Fleece in order that he may reclaim his rightful place as king. Bilbo became the burglar for Thorin and his dwarves in order to take back their treasure from the vile smog in the Lonely Mountain. Harry Potter had to embrace his identity as the Chosen One to defeat Voldemort in order to save the Wizarding Realm. To make our players sufficiently care, we must give them a good reason to say yes. And I believe this is the first part of what a campaign should accomplish. Now let's say, for example, we have a campaign premise that goes like this. A princess has been kidnapped during her coronation by an evil dragon in a magical, faraway kingdom. The heroes must rescue the princess before she is locked away in a forbidden castle forever. Given this premise as our campaign, let's nail down the first milestones. First, let's deal with the Establish Milestone. Think of an event that establishes your player in the setting and the problem. In our example, a princess is kidnapped by an evil dragon during her coronation. Your next milestone is to find a good reason why the players will say yes to the quest. Now for me, there are 4 paths that we can take to solve this problem. We can take the faith path to challenge their beliefs, the favor path that gains them favor with someone important, the fortune path that makes them rich, or the fame path that benefits their reputation. I talk about these motivations in another video, so go ahead and check that out if you haven't done so. Then come back here when you're done. For us, our Motivate milestone might go something like this. The Royal Council requests the heroes to rescue the princess in exchange for the royal treasure. Once the motivation is defined, it is time to set our adventurers on the first steps towards the actual quest. The Embark milestone is all about pointing your players in the right direction. So our Embark milestone for this adventure could work something like this. Players must enter the royal archives and find the lost map of the sacred beacons. With the Embark milestone in place, you've now set the 3 most important events that need to happen in the first act of your campaign. Now remember that these are milestones, and they may or may not actually correspond to the number of sessions that happen within the game. They're more like guideposts to remind you this is where you need to go and what you need to do to get there. With that said, you're all set for the second act of your campaign, getting your heroes to cross the unknown. The next major question you need to answer is, how will you keep your players invested enough to reach the end? This, my friends, is known as the dreaded second act. Like any movie or novel, the second act is where the bulk of your campaign takes place. The problem that we have as GMs is that if this roadmap of events is not clear, then our campaigns can become very convoluted and unnecessarily lengthy. Defining clear milestones for the second act helps you keep the campaign on track towards the grand finale, without compromising your players' agency to choose the route to get there. The second act of your campaign starts with a very clear signal that the players have left the familiarity and the safety of the world that they know. Like when Jason and the Argonauts depart from the island of Lemnos, or when Bilbo and the dwarves set forth for the Lonely Mountain, or when Harry Potter begins his journey into Hogwarts. From there, they will come face to face with the trials that they need to overcome, the allies that will assist them, and the enemies who will get in their way. And each of these encounters needs to move the story forward. If the second act of your campaign is done well, this will lead your players through a very exciting excursion through your world. If done poorly, it can lead to a long, aimless slog towards the finish. So, how do you effectively guide your players? We start the second act by defining the road of trials. In the hero's journey, the road of trials is where the hero encounters the tests, allies, and enemies along the way to their goal. In our Princess is in Another Castle example, we can say that the Road of Trials milestone begins when the heroes activate the sacred beacons to reveal the Tomb of Kings. We can expand this further out to say, Beacon 1 is in an ancient forest, Beacon 2 is in a sunken ruins, Beacon 3 is in the palace in the desert, Beacon 4 is in an undercity industrial complex, etc., etc. For the sake of brevity, we'll condense all these things to one, but you can expand this as much as you want. Now remember that these are milestones. The best way to think about this is like an MMO quest chain, with each quest in the chain having a purpose that aids the players towards their goal. But to reach that important goal, there is a pivotal guardian that stands in the player's way. In the case of the Argonauts, it was the impassable and treacherous Sinian rocks. In the case of the Hobbit, it was Smaug sitting on top of the Golden Horde. In the case of the first Harry Potter book, it was the magical obstacles that prevented him from gaining the Philosopher's Stone. The Guardian Milestone is what stands in the way between the players and the goal that they're after. And it's this milestone that really puts them to the test. For our Guardian Milestone, we can say something like this. The heroes must enter the tomb and defeat the ancient kings guarding the Sword of Stars. Now, the Guardian does not have to be an NPC of sorts. In essence, it can be any kind of barrier that prevents the players from reaching their goal. It can be a series of tests, like in Harry Potter. It can be confronting an enemy or discovering an unknown truth. Whatever you choose, it has to test your players. And once your players have proven themselves worthy enough for the prize by overcoming the Guardian, the reward should be immensely satisfying to claim. This is where the Earn Milestone comes in. And for our Earn Milestone, Our heroes will retrieve the Sword of Stars, a wondrous artifact granting them supernatural protection against the evil dragon. With the prize well at hand, your players are going to be celebrating a hard-earned victory. But your adventure doesn't end there, my friends, for the true danger lurks ahead and will push your players to the brink. Welcome, GMs, to the third and final act of your campaign. If you've made it this far in your adventure, you deserve an award. No, really. A fair number of campaigns do not make it to the finish line for dozens of reasons. But now that you're here, this is the most critical junction of your campaign, as the major question you will face in this act is, how will it all end? A poorly delivered ending can ruin the entire experience that you have been building up to, but in the right hands, it will give your players the catharsis, denouement, and finality that they are looking for. In my opinion, it is much harder to end a campaign than it is to begin one, but I do believe that by identifying the major milestones that need to happen in this act, we can set ourselves up to reach the ending everyone deserves. So, taking up from our last milestone, where the players have seized the proverbial sword, it is now time to throw your players into the dark night of the soul. It is in the Nemesis Milestone where the big bad evil guy gains the upper hand, and the players are thrust into an all-is-lost moment. It's when the Argonauts arrive to claim the Golden Fleece but are set back by the menacing trials of King Aedas. It's when Bilbo and the dwarves must defend their hard-earned prize against the overwhelming number of goblins. Or when Harry Potter comes face to face with death as he encounters Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest. Begin the Nemesis Milestone by asking yourself, what can your big bad evil guy do to majorly set back your players? In our campaign example, the Nemesis Milestone could look something like this. The evil dragon steals the Sword of Stars, which it reveals to be a fragment of its own soul, then traps the players inside the Tomb of Kings. Now, whatever this milestone is, your players are going to have to overcome the all-is-lost moment. In our case, it can be something like this. Players must join the Ancient Kings to forge the King's Edict, a powerful spell that can be used to seal away the vile dragon once and for all. Once you've defined what your players need to do in order to overcome the all-is-lost moment, it is time for the grand climax of your adventure, the final confrontation, the showdown, the boss battle of your campaign. In this milestone, list down how you imagine your grand finale to unfold. For us, it is simply to confront the evil dragon at its castle and save the princess. And once you've identified the grand finale, it is time to bring your campaign to an end. The end is the hard-earned conclusion to your grand adventure. It's where you resolve the final battle, play out the consequences of the adventure, and give each hero a worthwhile send-off. Now, this topic in and of itself requires a few videos to tackle, so hit that bell and subscribe button to make sure you're notified when they drop. For now, in our end milestone, jot down what you imagine the happy or tragic ending to be. To end our example campaign, I'd write something like this. The princess is saved and restored to her kingdom. The heroes receive the royal treasure, and with the honor bestowed to them by the old kings, they are heralded as protectors of the realm. And there you have it, a campaign outline that can take all of your incredible ideas and turn them into your adventure's major story beats. Now notice in each of these parts, I haven't really fleshed out anything in detail, I've only captured the main ideas in bullet points. And I did this because bullet points allow you to quickly jot down the ideas, giving you plenty of flexibility to make changes when necessary. On a side note, one really great thing about a campaign outline is that if you're using something like a milestone XP progression, it allows you to map out exactly when to distribute your levels and adjust the difficulty accordingly. Emergence takes a lot of guesswork out of identifying the major story beats that need to happen in a campaign, giving you a concise, high-level overview of your entire adventure from start to finish. It frees your players to take any path they choose without sacrificing your ability to guide them to the next milestone. Just remember to make the necessary tweaks every now and then, as every GM knows nothing is set in stone. Great ideas are bound to pop up as your adventure progresses, so don't be afraid to change things around in your outline. Best of all, this works with any homebrew or pre-made adventure that you have been running or are planning to run in the future. With your campaign outline out of the way, you're all set to prep your very first session by building around your campaign's milestones. I'll be showing you how to outline a killer first session. To follow along, you're going to need to watch this video where I break down a simple 6-step process that will help you outline any adventure. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys think, or maybe if you have questions or clarifications, feel free to drop them in there as well. And if you're planning to run an adventure campaign anytime soon, be sure to check out this video to make sure you get started on the right foot.